metagame. Unfortunately, all of like the good blue cards, like Force of Will, Mental Misstep, were actually really, really terrible, or were really, really good against most traditional because they just counter one drop and you can't do anything in discard. So we went back to a like a manaless version. We tried Chancellors in it originally, and they didn't kind of work out. Like free 1/1s off the red one and free drain lives off the black one, things like that, and just really, really wasn't working out. And so we just maximized our dredge things, and we're looking for discard outlets, and remembered back to Gigapede and Phantasmagorian. So the way the deck works is you want to be on the draw every single game, so you can just fill your hand up to 8 and pitch either your dredge card, any one of them, even dredge 3, Shambling Shell's fine, pitch a Gigapede, so during your upkeep you can switch it for the dredge card and play around hate cards, or pitch a Phantasmagorian, which is best case scenario, where you get to pitch 3 cards and dump all your Icarids and Nether Shadows as well. Within a couple of turns, you'll be able to start chaining Phantasmagorians and Gigapedes and, you know, fill your graveyard up just as fast if you would a normal dredge deck, even with 1 dredge per turn. Activate, you know, actually dredging 1 card per turn. And then the same usual suspects, Narcomoeba, Nether Shadows come back, Icarids come back, Bloodghast come back, and just go aggro.
So you have a lot more dredge cards than most dredge decks. You have, you have all the Grave Trolls, obviously, all the Stinkweed Imps. You know, you have Thug. Most of the decks nowadays are playing Thug 4. But now you have Shambling Shell. I don't know if most people remember what this card does, but the relevant part is as Dredge 3.
It's Dredge 3, and it's a black card.
And then there's also 3 Darkmoor Salvage. So you have 19 dredge cards to get everything going.
The reason for that is because you need to have a dredge card in your opening hand to open up. Your first 8 cards, you need, like, it is so important that you have a dredge card to discard and get the engine going.
Right, otherwise the rest of your cards in your deck don't really do anything. So Darkmoor Salvage also provides another interesting angle. Most dredge decks, you know, there's this debate over, you know, you have 4 Narcomoebas, obviously, that's the broken card. But then people are playing Bloodghast versions, people playing Icarid versions. Again, this deck, you know, it doesn't play lands, it doesn't play spells, it gets to run all of them. It gets to run Icarid, and Darkmoor Salvage is basically just there so you can recur Bloodghast.
That's the only reason it's there. There comes a time when, in critical turns, where you need to be able to bring those Bloodghast back to reanimate an Iona or Woodfall Primates or one of your reanimation targets onto the board right now. Relying on just Icarids and just Narcomoebas and a few Icarids wasn't reliable enough. So we needed a way to get those back. Also, later in the game, it just provides, you know, a more consistent beatdown play.
You might just be able to, you know, get back 2 salvages, get back a Thug to start recurring Thug. Thug dies to therapy.
Thug dies to therapy, put Narcomoeba back on top, mill it, do all the normal drills.
Right. So you can kind of not really cast spells. Maybe cast a therapy, but it's kind of, you know,
And
this weird sort of backup plan to cast your spells.
Exactly. The backup plan to other decks, which was, you know, just bringing back Icarids and things like that and going beyond, that's plan A here. Because you don't need to cast spells. It turns Mental Misstep into practically a dead card. Turns Force of Will into practically a dead card. You're not running Cephalid Coliseum or other lands like Undiscovered Paradise, City of Brass to be able to return your Bloodghast, so it makes Wasteland pretty much dead. Last I checked, those were some of the 3 best cards in the format.
And one of the biggest problems with, you know, I've played a little of the normal dredge decks now, and a lot of
imps.
I've been looking more at the Max Brown played a list of the Grand Prix that was Lines Dynamic based, but he has Gitaxian probes, and like one of the things you do is that against all these control decks, this is the game plan you start off with. You go, I'll draw first, draw against almost everything actually, everything but combo. You go, I'll draw first, draw, discard, untap, Gitaxian probe, and just after that you start therapying them a little bit, and like once you clear the way a little, you start going off, but you know, by that point this deck would have already done a lot of the same things.
And it originally did have the Taxian Probe in there, but we found Street Wraith to be a little bit better because it can be done at instant speed, doesn't get Mental Misstepped, and it's it's also a black card. Street Wraith is a black card, so you can remove it to your Icarids.
It's also a creature for Nether Shadow.
That is true. That's very true as well.
So Nether Shadow is something that this deck also gets to run. Like other dredge decks, when they dredge, they're going to flip, you know, a bunch of breakthroughs and lands, but this deck, your deck is, you know, how many creatures do you have in your deck?
32, 33, something like that.
Yeah, most of your deck is creatures, so this Nether Shadow is just almost instantly
coming back. One of the other things great with him is if you've got a Phantasmagorian in your graveyard, like you sacrifice him to Cabal Therapy, he's on top already, so you don't think you're going to be able to bring him back. You just pitch 3 cards, which are most likely creatures, to Phantasmagorian on end step, and he gets to come back anyways.
Actually, double counting, I think you have 45 creatures in the main deck right now. You may have not been counting like some of the dredge cards.
Oh, okay.
There are a full 45 creatures in this dredge deck, so this Nether Shadow is always active.
I think the black creature count was like 30. Was like 30.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
So just these guys, Icarid and Nether Shadow and Bloodghast, they do a good job on the beatdown. They don't really need any help.
No.
So looking through Gigapede, and then you have Cabal Therapy, obviously, free discard spell. You're not
free
really,
sack outlet, get your bridge tokens.
Yeah, and then you have Dread Return. So talk about how like Dredge Return works in this deck compared to the other Dredge decks.
It's really not as central of a plan because most of the other decks, they want to get in their, their Big Fatty, their Iona, or if they're Dread Returning a,
Flamekin Zealot?
Flamekin Zealot, or I always use River Kelpie, but Sphinx of Lost Truths, yes.
Yeah,
get him in play to keep your Dredge engine going. Well, you don't really care about that. I still run 4 of them because it's a great sacrifice outlet to get more bridge tokens, as well as the sideboard you have. because you can't run things like
second, but
it's a lot of big guys. It's a lot of big things, so you need to maximize on them to make sure to hit one when you want to Dread Return the big
right. Okay, so Dread Return is not really the central plan, but you can do it. It's worth it. You have a Woodfall Primus and Iona in the main deck. What brought you to those?
I originally had Angel of Despair in both those slots because I thought it being a black creature was going to be relevant. It turned out it wasn't because you had so many of them. Iona's pretty standard for most lists. Named blue against a lot of decks. Against that matchup I just played, if I could have gotten it named red, that would he's
100% dead.
My round 1 I played against a mono red deck, and he got me to 3 game 1 and 4 game 2. But after Dread returned Iona, he was done. He couldn't do anything.
No, River Kelpie or...
I tried it, but because you're already...
Same thing,
you're already a pretty aggressive deck, and it just seemed to win more.
Yeah, so by the time you're Dread returning, you're I'm getting 6 bridge tokens, I'm getting back all my Nether Shadows next turn, and all my Icarids.
There's
Don't
no
need to do that.
There's no turn where you're like, oh man, my opponent's gonna do something their next turn, I need to go off now.
Yeah,
the steady stream of advantage over 3 or 4 turns is plenty enough.
So the best thing it's going to do is just Cabal Therapy them a few more times, which, if you name right, shouldn't be necessary.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go through this sideboard here, because this is pretty awesome. So we've got 4 Contagion. What Contagion is, for those who don't know, it's kind of the Black Force of Will. It's from Alliances. You pay a life, and you exile a black card from your hand to cast it, and you put 2 -2, -1 counters on creatures. So that's for Yixila Jailer?
Yixila Jailer, that's it.
That's it.
That's really the only thing you worry about. Yes, it can sometimes kill a Dark Confident.
Kill some beatdown guys.
Yeah, kill some beatdown guys, but generally it's only there for Jailer.
Yeah, and all the other hate cards, you don't really have to get off of 7 cards in hand at any point.
Right.
So when they Tormod script you just start up again next turn.
You start up again the following turn. Most decks, like Relic, you can just play around. Extirpate, you can just play around. There's enough dredge cards to where, and enough redundancy where it doesn't.
Yeah. Rich Shea talked about this in normal dredge. You don't want these hate cards. They just make your deck worse. It just doesn't matter. And the only hate card that you can't just beat with your regular cards is Leyline. If they got it, right?
Which, with my list, I can't even run Nature's Claims or Chain of Vapors, so I'm just cool to it. And that's how I lost my round 3. I was playing against mono blue control deck, pretty standard list, and game 1 was a complete blowout. I didn't cast any spells, just brought back dudes from the dead and killed them. Games 2 and 3, he had
Leyline.
Dead. So I was dead. It happens. That's the cost I get for playing.
Okay, so let's go through the sideboard. You had it actually listed pretty much alphabetically, I remember from this. So we have, first off, we have a Chroma Angel of Wrath. What's she for?
Just mainly red decks. It's pretty good against Zoo. Just a big fatty flyer guy.
Okay.
Sometimes mono the black-white decks, although she can be swords there. She's just a big fatty flyer.
Ancestors Chosen, that's mostly for same kind of decks.
Same kind of decks.
Zoo.
It's actually surprisingly good against storm decks.
Yeah.
Tendrils.
Yeah, you just gain 20 life, and all of a sudden they have to Tendrils you for 40 after taking a few Bloodghast hits, and it's really hard for those decks to do that.
Yep.
Right. Let's see. We have Blazing Archon.
Again, same kind of decks. It's just prevents him from attacking. It's also pretty good against like no rug, blanking Progenitus.
It's good against Merfolk.
Yes.
They don't really have an out to this guy
they do
usually.
not. The only outs that I've really seen is like if they want to hard cast the Submerge and bring that in against me, which seems terrible, or if they're playing Echoing Truth, which you don't see a whole lot.
It's also fun in a Dredgemere. You know, if they don't get, they don't have Angel of Despair, this guy's just going to kill them.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. We have Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite.
Again, creature matchups, and you'll notice, like, rather than playing like 3 Elish Norns or something like that, you'll notice a lot of the cards do similar things. The reason for it is because, like, I don't want my Elish Norn to get extirpated and all of them to be gone.
Right.
I want another card that does basically the same thing.
Right.
That card's really good in the Dredgemere, killing all their bridge tokens, making yours bigger. Any of the tribal decks, goblins, it's amazing. It's just killing all their stuff, making yours bigger.
So, we have another Gigapede, just sort of make the deck a bit more consistent when you need it to be?
Make it a little bit more consistent. A lot of times I'll switch out a Gigapede for a Phantasmagoria in game 2 because this allows you, it's a little bit slower, but it's not as all in, so you don't get blown out by a Crypt or a Relic or things like that. It's also, I found out today that when you Dread Return it against a mono blue player, or like any of the 3-color blue control decks, they have no outs to that one either.
Just no outs to a Shroud creature ever?
Nope, nope.
And, the main deck Dread Returns, also one of the Dread Return targets people don't think about a lot. Golgari Gravestroll is huge.
He's huge. When you're running 40-some creatures, like, you could have 12 cards in your graveyard, and they're all creatures. He's already enormous.
Right. So, Inkwell Leviathan, Giant Shroud Monster.
Giant Shroud Monster. He's, any decks with Swords to Plowshares, I usually bring him in, whether they're blue or not, just because you can't get rid of them.
Right. Same, so, kind of like Gigapede as game 1, he's just your Giant Shroud idiot to Dread Return when he needs it. Okay, so another Iona.
We already talked about Iona, just more redundancy. The matchups he's good against, he's really, really good against.
Your opponent's combo, you want an Iona.
You want it now. So
if there's any matchup where you need to Dread Return immediately, it's the combo matchups.
It's the combo matchups, it's the matchups where you need Iona.
Right. Okay, so we have a Luan. I'm assuming Progenitus and Merfolk.
Progenitus, that's exactly it. I originally had like 3 or 4 of them in the board, but then going through cards and seeing, like Blazing Archon, they were just a little bit better because they were bigger creatures.
Right. You're not really going to kill them with this 2/3 Luan. It's going to give them a couple turns, maybe get their own Luan, something, a Sower, get their 8th Avowal going, get their creatures back in the play. Assuming Merfolk.
It's the redundancy thing, so I'm not running 4 Blazing Archons. So I can just get that.
So now we have Robo-Achroma, Sphinx of the Steel Wind.
Zoo, it's really good against, although it can be swords. I brought it in that last matchup, brought it against Mono Red. I was planning for a lot of... The main deck's already really good against blue, so against all the other decks, all the creature-based decks, you want more Dread Return targets against them, so you'll notice a lot of them are for that.
Right. So, on a similar vein to the Blazing Archon, we have Stormtide Leviathan. Same concept, except not as good versus Merfolk because of Lord of Atlantis.
Because of Lord of Atlantis. Blanks Progenitus again, really good in the mirror matchup because they can't attack me because I don't...
Right. And then Terastodon. Kind of the big daddy version of Woodfall Primus.
I was really scared of Ensnaring Bridge. Which is why Woodfall Primus and like the Destroy a Permanent card was in there. I just wanted another one that did the same thing that could take care of it.
And Terastodon can kill, all their lands sometimes.
I know a lot of times other Dredge players would destroy their own lands with it. Just to
you don't really have those.
I don't have that. I don't really have that option, but it's there.
So, anything else about the deck?
Not really. I mean, my roommate was just like, came up with it, and we just kind of worked on it together, and everything seems to fall into place. I think this is the perfect tournament for it, since there's so many blue-white control decks, Unforged decks, all the blue-based control decks, and it seems a perfect fit for it.
Let's see. What other decks were you considering for this weekend?
I was considering Blue-White Unforged, oddly enough.
Opposite end of the spectrum?
Completely opposite end, just because it is a little bit more forgiving deck. You're not just dead to so many cards. I was considering Zoo, the Wasteland 1-drop Zoo. Just because Wasteland and Tempo together just fits perfectly. Ultimately, I decided on this. I didn't think there would be very many Leyline of the Voids. Unfortunately, I played against it round 3. But that's pretty much how I came on this.
Let me see if there's any Twitter questions anyone wants to ask. Yeah, they were commenting on during the match that your opponent chose to play first.
Yeah, and then he actually realized, I don't know if you can hear the audio from it, he realized after he chose to play, he's, I'm like, you're playing, right? Just to make sure. And he says, yeah, I'll choose to play. And then he thinks about it. He's like, maybe I should have chose to draw, because it's just like him being on the play, but a free draw.
Yeah, it's
that's
very weird.
One of the common things about it, like he'll go against my opponent, like game 2, you want to play or draw? They go, I'll play. Just
snap choice.
Snap choice. It's usually the logical choice.
But people are just, it's just one of those things you never really think about. You know, like it's like, oh yeah, unlimited, maybe you want to draw versus constructed. You always play first. Well,
this is one that you want to draw.
Exactly. So let's see. This is Manalist Strategy now 3-1 right now.
3-1 with it. Hoping to play against some more blue decks. Hoping to not play against ley lines.
Hoping to play against more Howling Minds, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's not get started on that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you for coming in. Good luck in the rest of the event.
Thank you very much.
And it was great talking to you.
Thank you.
This round is actually in turns, and we're about to start the next one almost. Gavin's going to be coming back right now. And unfortunately for the people asking on Twitter, the Moto connection to the screen is dead for today. So Momir Joyra is a no-go right now. So looking forward to next round. We've seen so many different decks. So last round we had Pyromancer's Ascension, or Howling Mind, or Roomfler